There is a plant standing in the ditch at the edge of your town right now, in the marshes, the pond edges, the roadside wetlands, that a single family could live on through an entire winter. It feeds you. It heals you. It starts your fire and stuffs your pillow and weaves your basket. The naturalist Euell Gibbons, who spent his life eating wild plants, called it the supermarket of the swamp, because there is almost nothing a human being needs to survive that this one plant cannot provide. It produces more starch per acre than potatoes or rice. Its pollen is a protein-rich flower. The gel inside its leaves is a natural antiseptic that Native American nations packed into wounds and burns for thousands of years. Its fluffy brown seed heads were stuffed into life jackets in the Second World War when the Navy could not get enough kapok, and you have walked past it your entire life believing it was nothing but a weed in a swamp. This is the cattail. And the reason it is not on every table in America is the same reason nothing that grows for free ever is. Welcome to Lost Plant Remedies. Let me show you everything this single plant does, because once you understand it, you will never look at a marsh the same way again. Start with food, because the cattail is one of the most complete wild food sources on the North American continent, and every season it offers you something different. In early spring, the young shoots at the base, peeled down to the tender white core, are crisp and mild and sweet, eaten raw or cooked, and the Russians ate so many of them they earned the name Cossack asparagus. In late spring, the green immature flower spikes can be boiled and eaten like tiny ears of corn, slathered in butter. In early summer, the flower heads release an astonishing quantity of bright yellow pollen, and that pollen is a fine, protein-rich flour that our ancestors gathered by the bucket and baked into bread and pancakes. And all year round, buried in the mud, are the thick white rhizomes, the roots, packed with starch. Studies of cattail as a food crop have estimated that an acre of cattails can yield thousands of pounds of flour, more than an acre of wheat or potatoes, from a plant that plants itself, needs no fertilizer, no ploughing, no irrigation, and no care of any kind. One plant, 4 seasons, a carbohydrate staple, a protein flour, and a fresh vegetable, all from the same stand of weeds in the same ditch. Now the medicine, because the cattail is not just food. Between the leaves, at the base of the plant sits a clear, sticky gel, and that gel has been used as a natural antiseptic and painkiller by indigenous nations across the entire continent for as long as anyone can remember. It was pressed onto wounds to stop infection, onto burns to numb the pain and speed healing, onto sores and insect bites and toothaches. And the pollen, the same golden flour you can bake with, is a documented traditional medicine in its own right. In traditional Chinese medicine, it is called huang, and it has been prescribed for more than 2,000 years to stop bleeding and improve circulation. One of the classic herbs for wounds and internal bleeding, still listed in the Chinese Pharmacopoeia today. A single plant that feeds you, and when you are hurt, closes your wounds and stops your bleeding. Then the fire, and the shelter, and the cordage, because the usefulness of this plant does not stop at your mouth. The brown, sausage-shaped seed head, when it ripens and bursts, releases a mass of fine, dry, downy fluff, and that fluff is one of the finest natural fire-starting tinders in the world. A single spark catches it instantly. The same fluff was used for thousands of years to stuff pillows, quilts, and cradle boards, to insulate moccasins against the cold, and to diaper babies, because it is soft, absorbent, and endlessly abundant. And during the Second World War, when the United States Navy was cut off from its supply of kapok, the tropical fibre used to fill life jackets, the government turned to the cattail. American school children were sent out to gather cattail heads by the sackful, and that humble swamp fluff kept sailors afloat in the Pacific. The long, tough leaves, meanwhile, have been woven into mats, baskets, chair seats, and cordage across every culture that ever lived beside a marsh. One plant gave our ancestors their bread, their medicine, their fire, their bedding, and their baskets. So here is the question that should genuinely bother you. If a single plant growing free in every wetland in the country can feed a family, heal their wounds, start their fires, and furnish their home, why is it not the most celebrated plant in America? Why is it not farmed, sold, taught in schools, planted in every survival garden? Why have most Americans never eaten a single bite of it? The answer is the answer this channel keeps arriving at, and it has nothing to do with the plant failing. The cattail is not sold because the cattail cannot be sold profitably, and in our world, a thing that cannot be sold profitably becomes invisible. Think about what it would take to bring cattail to market the way we bring corn and wheat. It grows in standing water and deep mud, which no combine can harvest, and no tractor can cross. Its harvest is seasonal, muddy, and stubbornly manual, exactly the kind of labour an industrial food system is built to eliminate. It cannot be patented, because it has grown wild across the entire northern hemisphere since long before agriculture existed, and it belongs to no one. It recedes and spreads on its own with such vigour that it is officially classified in many places as an invasive nuisance to be controlled and removed. Every single trait that makes the cattail a perfect food for a family that harvests its own makes it a commercial impossibility for an industry that survives on machinery, shipping, patents, and the annual sale. So the food system did what it always does with a plant it cannot own. It ignored it, then it forgot it, and then, because the plant kept growing anyway, thriving in the wet ground where nothing profitable will grow, it reclassified the supermarket of the swamp as a weed. We did not lose the cattail because it was useless. We lost it because it was free, and the rest of the world as always never forgot. The peoples of the Americas, from the Iroquois to the Paiute, built part of their survival on it for thousands of years. In Russia and across Eastern Europe, the young shoots were a spring staple. In New Zealand, the Maori ground the pollen of the native bulrush into cakes. Wherever humans have lived beside still water, they have known this plant as a gift, and only the modern industrial world, with its aisles of shipped and shelf-stable food, managed to forget the pantry standing in its own back marsh. So let me show you how to take it back. And this is where I have to be careful with you, because the cattail is generous, but it demands two things of you before you eat it. First, identification. The cattail is easy to recognize once it has its distinctive brown, cigar-shaped seed head on a tall stalk, with long, flat, sword-like leaves growing in a dense stand in shallow water. But before it flowers, in early spring when you would harvest the young shoots, it can be confused with two dangerous lookalikes, the wild iris and the sweet flag, both of which grow in the same wet ground. The iris in particular is toxic. The critical difference is the leaf. Cattail leaves are flat on both sides and have no smell. Iris leaves grow in a flat fan, and sweet flag has a raised midrib and a strong spicy scent when crushed. Learn this difference cold before you ever harvest a spring shoot, because it is the one mistake this plant will not forgive. And second, the water. This is the caution that matters most, and it ties to something we have covered before on this channel. The cattail is a powerful phytoremediator, which means it actively pulls pollutants, heavy metals, and toxins out of the water and soil it grows in. That is a wonderful thing for cleaning a wetland and a dangerous thing for your dinner, because whatever is in that water ends up in the plant. Never, ever harvest cattail from a roadside ditch that collects road runoff, from water near industry or agriculture or old mining land, or from any water you would not be willing to drink from. Harvest only from clean, moving or living water that you know is unpolluted, well away from roads and farms and factories. Get those two things right, correct identification and clean water, and the cattail will feed you, heal you, and warm you for the rest of your life. To actually use it, start simple. In spring, peel a young shoot to its white core and slice it raw into a salad. In early summer, gather the green flower spikes and boil them for a few minutes and eat them like corn on the cob. When the pollen turns the flower heads golden, bend them into a paper bag and shake, and mix that bright flour half and half with wheat flour for the most beautiful yellow pancakes you have ever made. And in autumn and winter, dig the rhizomes from clean mud, peel them, and crush them in water to release the starch, which settles out as a flour you can dry and keep. Keep a bag of the dried fluff with your fire kit, and you will never struggle to catch a spark again. So think about what has actually been done to you. The food industry does not want you to know that a free plant in the local marsh outyields their wheat and feeds you across 4 seasons. The pharmaceutical industry does not want you to know its gel closes wounds and its pollen has stopped bleeding for 2,000 years. They will not tell you that Euell Gibbons called it the supermarket of the swamp. They will not tell you that it kept American sailors afloat in the Second World War. They will not tell you that indigenous nations lived on it for thousands of years. They will not tell you that the only reason it is not on your table is that it grows in mud, spreads for free, and cannot be owned. They will not tell you because there is no profit in a plant that provides everything and charges nothing. But the plant does not need their permission, and neither do you. It is not a weed in a ditch. It is the last proof that everything a family needs to survive, its food, its medicine, its fire and its shelter, once grew free and wild at the edge of every town and still does, standing patient in the marsh, waiting for someone to remember what it is. Every person who learns to see the cattail for what it truly is carries a small piece of self-sufficiency that no industry can ever take back. If this opened something for you, subscribe to Lost Plant Remedies before this video disappears, because we cover the plants and the forgotten knowledge that a world built on selling you everything would much rather you never went looking for. And if you want me to walk you through harvesting, cooking and using every part of the cattail yourself, along with 4 other forgotten remedies, grab my free 5-day course, The Lost Ferment, linked in the description below. It costs nothing. Our ancestors lived on the supermarket of the swamp for 10,000 years. It is still there. It is time you shopped it.